Welcome. This will be my thoughts on The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 15, Try. The episode is rated TVMA, so will this video be? There will be spoilers for the episode and all the ones leading up to it, all of which I love. Let's dive right in. So, yeah, this was a... God, I can hardly wait. So there's one episode left of this season. I'm gonna do it very soon, so I don't have to wait long, but damn. Yeah, I thought this episode did a really good job following up on the events of the one before it, and the yeah, the push pull of people either getting used to Alexandria or resisting it in one way or another. I think they're doing a really great job in the season of making Alexandria a place where you could basically see yourself spending your entire life. Unfortunately, walkers could see it as a place they could spend their entire death. And yeah, I'm not sure it is so safe yet. At least now they do have round-the-clock guards in the tower. And let's see, I think that is about it for the sort of general. Yeah, appreciate the couple of relationships that get further development and characters and such. Yeah, everything else we're gonna do scene by scene. So we start on the Deanna, Reg, and other guy listening to music that I am guessing was his music. Aiden, I think his name was, Deanna's son who died in the episode before this one. And yeah, I really appreciated the solemn, the way that it was solemn despite having this really loud music. And I like the way that in the audio mix they, at first it sounds, well, let's see, I want to say, I hope I'm saying this right, it goes from being diegetic to non-diegetic. At first we hear it the way they hear it. There's this quality to this. I'm not great at describing it, but if you watch the episode, hopefully you know what I mean. And then it goes to being just a natural part of the soundtrack, and it overlays other visuals. Clearly, Carol isn't listening to Run Mix, and she made a casserole and left it there, but they just Deanna just burns the note that says sorry for your loss. So that's rejection. That fire means rejection. And let's see. I kind of like the way that in this episode we actually we don't really hear directly from Sam. We hear Carol telling Rick what Sam said. And yeah, the way that he keeps showing up at her place because she is safe, and he's gradually opening up more and more, telling her these horrors. And yeah, Jesus Christ, I thought that Rick was gonna go and kill Pete the moment that, yeah, that she tells him about what Sam said. And it really is there's a closet with a latch lock on, or yeah, some kind of lock on the inside And Jesse tells Sam to go there and stay there until morning sometimes. And he can hear the violence, and one time it sounded quiet, so he went to see, and she was on the floor bleeding, and Pete was just on the porch. Like, Jesus Christ. And I feel like they're doing a really great job of grounding that. Like, the show does in general ground things really well, because, like, yeah, these are things that actually have, you know, happened and do happen. I guess I don't want to give away which. I'll just say there was a recent game that a bunch of anti-woke chuds was upset about. Fancy that. I know. I hope you were sitting down for this shocking revelation. Apparently, one of them witnessed something in the game, and I'm not going to give away the title because I believe it is a spoiler for that game. But in that game, there was a depiction of domestic abuse. And the guy said, oh, it's like comical. And, you know, I forget exactly who, well, let's see. I guess it was either Otterly Noah or Dead Domain. I don't think I saw anybody else talk about that particular review. But yeah, you know, and they point out, what the fuck? Like, no, this is a very accurate depiction of, because that also had this thing of, like, you know, let's see, in that one it was that the mother would send the daughter out to get something at the store when the mother could tell that her husband, the daughter's father, was about to get abusive, so that you know, she would bear the brunt of it. Maybe even, you know, that the daughter wouldn't be abused at all. And that's the kind of thing that has happened. So really appreciate this dealing with it. And let's see, I think, what was the next thing? Right, also the fact that Deanna just let the food just stay there on the porch, like very much not accepting the, yeah. And we see the videos, and god damn, let's see, I want to say his name is Nicholas. Yeah, you know, as I theorized, he lied. And I mean, by the end of the episode, yeah, it seems like Deanna, I mean, I don't know exactly what she thinks happened out there, but she certainly, you know, like, it doesn't look like Nicholas is being exiled, but I think Rick might. Um, I just want there to be an outtake where he says, okay, I'm leaving. Carl, come on. And Carl's like, Dad, I actually have a girlfriend now, so, but yeah, I think, yeah, and you know, we see the video, and Deanna keeps rewinding it to rewatch, and meanwhile, you know, Glenn is telling the truth to Rick, you know, so yeah. Let's see. I think that yeah, Deanna says, you know, Glenn and Nicholas have to stay within the walls, and they don't they have to be barred from access to the guns, at least for the time being. And we have the thing about, you know, you must see that you have no idea. I see plenty, but you don't know what. And let's see. I think, does that pretty well bring us to the what was the next thing? I guess I can certainly talk a little about, so yeah, Sasha, you know, spent all this time, you know, she was in the tower for longer than she was supposed to be, and Abraham took over, but then she just left, and started, yeah, hunting them. And I think that does get us to the yeah, I think around here is when he goes to talk, when Rick goes, or wait, yeah, I think this might be when he's just standing there and he's got the gun in his hand and Pete comes by and he's like, keep walking. You know, I think I'd listen to him considering the tone. And yeah, I thought, oh, well, I guess, Pete, it was not nice knowing you. Uh, Say hi to Ed. Who's Ed? Ed's dead, baby. Ed's dead. Yeah, I think, let's see. Was this around the time when we got a little bit of Daryl and Aaron? Sure, I'll talk some about, so yeah, you know, they spot a light and it's like, someone's out here. And yeah, Rick goes to talk to Jesse, and you know, he spots her with cigarette, and she's like, "Don't tell my boys, it's a secret smoke, because I'm a secret smoker." And I don't think she wishes he were their dad. But yeah, and that's also a good way to show, like, yeah, she's being more stressed out. And I do also appreciate, like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with Tara. Like, let's see. I guess Rick was stopped right before he killed Pete, but I mean, I don't know if Pete is going to say, you know, I'm not going to work on Tara when Rick, if you don't exile Rick. But yeah. And she says that there was a while where she was able to prevent him. She made him better. And Rick points out, you know, if he doesn't, like, if no one stops Pete, then he will eventually kill her. And, you know, I know some misogynists don't like to hear that, but that is what, you know, the research bears out. And it is sadly true that there are a number of, you know, people out there who think, many of them women, I forget the percentages, but they're in an abusive relationship, you know, survivor of domestic abuse, and they tell themselves that they can fix it, they can make their partner, or you know, whoever it is, better, by engaging in, you know, by behaving in a certain way, or the sort of thing. It was also very, and yeah, it is not. Well, let's see. I I don't think I'm qualified to speak on whether it is at all possible or not. What I absolutely feel confident in asserting is, if you know someone who is in a situation like this, try to make sure they get the help and support they need, whether it's from you or a professional or something, but they should not be left alone with it. I think that might just about, let's see. I guess at this point I might as well. So yeah, a movie that does a really fantastic job of exploring some of the complexities of being in an abusive relationship is 45, or Caliber 45, depending on where in the world is Carmen Sandiego and she's reading the title of the movie. Mila Jovovich and yeah, one of the hosts from Whose Line are both in it, and they're great. I know not everybody likes Mila Jovovich. I'm not going to pretend like she doesn't have some bad movies. I think that's absolutely not one of them, though. Yeah. Let's see. I guess that more or less brings us to the. I feel like, what am I? I liked when she said he suffered before, and Rick says, I don't care, which is such a effective summation of, because it's true, hurt people, and a lot of cops. I mean, I 100% believe ACAB, but I don't know if all cops, if the following applies to all cops, but many cops don't care what led to the thing that, because like I don't know, I just think it's noteworthy that he doesn't say we have to get him help, but away from you, he says I don't care. Yeah, which is one of the reasons we need to do something about. Shit, I can never remember exactly what it is, but what was it called again? Defund the police. We need to get to a place where it is not cops who respond to mental health crises, because a lot of the time that leads to escalation. It introduces more violence rather than getting rid of the violence that there was, or that someone worried there might be. Now, let's see. The right now, so yeah, the fact that, because like, yeah, he's a doctor, so if he hits her until she bleeds, he's the one stitching her back up. That it's one of those things of like, I don't know how. I shouldn't plug it too much, because I haven't read it. I'd like to, but there is a I want to say short story called "The People Who Walk Away from Omalas." Yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Like, people know, like Deanna doesn't even, she doesn't even pretend like she didn't know. She just says, I hoped it would get better. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the bare minimum. You're shit. I forget who said it, but there was a some fellow YouTuber, leftist YouTuber, I believe. Most of the ones I watch are certainly leftist. Anyway, yeah, one used the phrase that I don't know if they came up with it, but I haven't heard it before. It was new to me. Tripping on the low bar, which, yeah, they knew, but he's a surgeon, he saves lives. They can't do without him. And that's, of course, the problem with the sort of system that they do have in Alexandria. And I love that they made it to where we can understand. Like, it's horrific, but you know I'm not saying that it should go on. I'm saying we can understand how they feel like they're good people, even though they're letting this happen. That's what I mean. I'm not saying that it should be happening. Yeah. Let's see. And I also quite appreciate, and that's, yeah, the show, every so often will bring up like a real, conundrum, like a proper ethical issue where there is not an easy answer. Um, if they did exile Pete or let Rick execute him, what about next time someone needs a doctor, a surgeon even, So yeah, um, I don't know. I mean, right now I definitely, I don't think, if I were in those shoes, if I were in Deanna's shoes, I would do something about Pete, not just let it keep happening. Maybe a forced separation of some kind. Because that, yeah, hypothetically, if you say, okay, Pete has to stay away from Jesse, and if he gets too close, he will be exiled, or there will be some severe penalty. But that would mean that he could still, help patients. But of course, the reason Deanna doesn't is that he doesn't want to, and that's like Rick even says, we're gonna go outside, you and me. So yeah, very much the cop there. He's trying to be the cop that stops it. And, you know, Pete comes in, he's like, you want to do what to my wife with a falafel? And yeah, I think that covers that entire. Yeah, so she sends Rick away, closing the garage door. Again, a great visual metaphor on the show. That is pretty clear. Like, don't come in here. And it was open before because she didn't think that he would come in and say that he was going to take out Pete. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah. Uh Michonne wakes up, and yeah, it bothers her that she fell into a very deep sleep, and nothing happened, but when she wakes up, she's still like, something could have happened, and that's a trauma response. um the show is really good at exploring those. And Rosita comes in, and yeah, Tara, they might, Pete might be able to save her, but it's unclear. And so they talk about Sasha and go looking for her. And let's see, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I appreciate the way that Alexandria, it's this sort of, so Woodbury was the suburbs with an explicit like dictator, which, like, the suburbs, there is a lot of conformity and limitation. It's like a cage, like a gilded cage. And yeah, it can be hell. Just ask Todd Salons. And what we have here, like, it's still like this suburb kind of thing, complete with gate and walls and all this, nobody can get in kind of thing. I'm not saying every suburb has like that sort of thing, but there's suburbs where, if you go into the suburb and you're not like someone who lives there or a relative thereof, you will pretty quickly be, removed, perhaps by police. But yeah, Deanna herself pointed out it's essentially communism, so it's this fascinating mix of the two. Because, like, you ask the average suburbanite, and they hate communism. So I think that does. Let's see. And yeah, with the suburbs, we also have this thing of hiding, secrets. And like there was a little bit of secrets. Certainly the bunch of Woodburyans did not know about the governor's daughter being a zombie that he has, that he keeps in his living area. But here it's an open secret. Everybody knows that Pete hits Jesse. Or okay, not necessarily everybody, but Deanna knew. The person who runs things knew and didn't do anything. Just hoped that it would get better. And yeah, there's the suburbs, it's this thing of like, I'm not sure if anybody has ever truly been all that happy. Like, there are people who feel more or less safe, like at least physically, in a suburb, but I feel like every single thing I've heard about suburbs has either been like capitalist propaganda or like horror stories. And I think it's noteworthy that like when people, the people who talk about, oh, we should return to like the 50s and 60s kind of thing, and suburb life, like so many of them, they're remembering like Leave It to Beaver and similar. They're not, a lot of them didn't even experience it themselves at all. Like maybe their parents did, and maybe it's possible that their parents just lied about how miserable they were, but you hear details about how bad it was, and yeah, it was bad. Like the suburbs were never really made to solve problems. They were basically just a place for it was in part about making sure that people were willing to engage in the drudgery, the wage slavery. It was supposed to make for happy worker drones. um I think that might be, Revolutionary Road does a really solid job of exploring how bad the yeah and yeah, I think that pretty well covers what I wanted to say about that. So yeah, the yeah, Carl goes looking for his little girlfriend. I don't know. I guess that by the end of the episode, maybe they're not like dating, but there's definitely a, you know, they both express at least some interest. But yeah, he's trying to catch up to her, um, and yeah, she knew last time. That's why she scampered away as she did, because she realized, oh, he's following me. And then she says, "You're a loud walker," and she says, "You're not even moving in the right direction." And yeah, not terribly long after, she does reveal where she is. And then you have that wonderful little thing of, what are you doing out here? Or what do you do out here? The same thing as you. And she runs, and he runs with her, and there's slow motion, and just the joy on their faces, and the energy, like it is such a contrast from the lethargic girl sitting on the bed when Carl met the other teenagers. This is how she is comfortable. Yeah. Let's see. I think that pretty well brings us to the yeah. So the conversation between Rosita and Michonne, where the thing about, when Eugene lied, I was messed up because I lost something, but you're messed up because you found something. And the thing about, you didn't bring your sword. That's, that's not nothing. And the thing about, you're getting used to Alexandria. I'm not sure I want to, you know. Let's see. Yeah. Uh I guess let's talk about, so they catch up to Sasha. And yeah, she's just shooting every walker she comes across. It is how she's working through, the pain of losing, both Bob and Tyrese. And it's again this, like, I suppose magical thinking. Because, like, logically she knows she's not getting those two back, not ever. But if she kills every walker, maybe nobody else, you know like, nobody else will be killed by a walker. And it very much was like, both of them, that's part of why they died. And of course it's completely impossible, like, and the number of walkers is too damn high. There's simply no way she could possibly kill every single one of them. And deep down she knows that, but she's not accepting it yet. And great bit where ultimately Michonne and Rosita do have to help. I know I already said it, but it does tickle me that Christian Serratos, who plays Rosita, apparently can't stand knives in real life. So she does a really great job acting, like she is all about the knives on this show. Yeah. And I thought they did a really great job. At first it looked slightly awkward that she's the only of the three without a gun, but she's still extremely effective. A walker, like, attacks her, she breaks its fucking leg, so it's you know the bones poking through. Very, very cool. And then she stabs in the head. And I think that pretty much, yeah. So we get a brief, very brief, intercutting of Michonne's greatest moments, the demo reel for when she gets action rolled. But no, yeah, seriously, she's realizing this is like how I was. This is where I was before, becoming more, well-adjusted person. And she shoots some, and of course Sasha ends up almost overwhelmed. She did bring extra clips, but changing the clip when there's so many walkers around, and yeah, I think she would have been able to stop the walker that was attacking her, but yeah. And she says, "You don't understand. You can't help me. No one." And she doesn't finish the sentence, but yeah, she was about to say no one can help her. She feels perpetually lost, you know. And that again is like, there are a number of people who grieve, who end up feeling like there's just nothing and no one. So again, really effective. I really appreciate the show for depicting this. I can imagine some people watched this and like recognized themselves, and it motivated them to get help. And I'm not saying it's easy, but there should be no shame in seeking help. We human beings have to rely on each other. Individualism is bullshit and just causes pain. Uh, Almost every single thing that you might currently attribute to an individual, there were other people that made that possible. Even if one person ultimately, reached the goal on something, somebody else helped along the way in one way or another. So yeah, I think let's talk about Jesus Christ, the most fucked up thing in the episode. So yeah, a woman was strapped to a tree and fed on. Jesus Christ. And Daryl and Aaron have to put down the now Walker. Um, yeah, I I'm a little scared of who did that, who's capable of that. But I feel like we're probably going to meet them at some point, and I'm going to try not to think too much about the details. But very scintillating, very horrifying bit. Um, I quite liked when she told Carl, this is how it's supposed to be, you know, and the thing where she like throws what do y'all call those, egg timer maybe? Um, I don't know, maybe that's just us, but they're good for you know, if you've got a few minutes, you could go boil an egg, and it'll help keep track of when to take it out in order to make sure that it's the right, whether you want them soft boiled or hard boiled. And yeah, um, she says, he's like, uh, why don't you like me? And she says, because you scare me. And I forget if she said that in an episode before, but certainly there was a point where she was supposed to say it to him, and they ended up cutting it. So this might be the first time she said it on screen, but they talked about it in the commentary track for one of the episodes. But yeah, the thing about, because you're dangerous. He's not Alexandrian. He's not there, at least yet. And yeah, at one point, there's just too many walkers. So they hide inside a tree. And I don't know. I'm just saying, that game 7 Minutes in Heaven? Yeah, I don't know. Just randomly thought of that. Has absolutely no relevance to the scene. But yeah, and you see her hand, and the walkers walk as they do right past, and yeah, he does touch her hand a little, and it really did look like a kiss was about to occur. There's only so much space there, and they do appear, at least, to both be somewhat attracted to one another. Yeah, I mean, she could have just stayed hidden. And at first she did say, just go home. And he wouldn't. And they talk, like these are not the actions of someone who just wants to be alone. But yeah, she can't go out there with the other Alexandrians, and she hasn't told anybody in Alexandria that she does this because they wouldn't understand, they're too Alexandrian, and she can't quite completely become Alexandrian, at least yet, and he hasn't. So very nicely done on that. Yeah, I think that does pretty much leave. Let's see. We have the Really loved Glenn going up to Nicholas and just, shut up and listen. And he lays it all out. And, Nicholas, Jesus Christ, this fucking asshole, he's like, who do you think you are? I've been here longer. And Glenn says, I just saved your life. Which, like, yeah, because one of the things he said was, don't go out there, not by yourself, not with anybody else. And yeah, it's true. Like, he almost got killed. He almost got himself killed. Yeah. Let's see. I think that pretty much brings us to the, let's see. I feel like there's one more thing about, something from outside the wall, maybe, but I don't know, maybe not. Also really love the Daryl points out, this happened very recently, so they are close by. And right, I like the baby monitor that Carol had set up, and that by now she does just, she's not really resisting having some kind of relationship with Sam. Near the end of the episode, we see the two of them walking together. Like, clearly she does. Like, now that she realizes that he's, that they have, the domestic abuse survivor status in common. That was also great when, so Rick asks, why do you care so much? And she's like, you know why I do. And I know why you do. And I think that pretty much does just leave the very last bit with, yeah, so one more time for old time's sake. Harvey Dent, can we trust him? Rick goes in to talk to Jesse, and yeah. They have the conversation, and the yeah, she seems to agree, and then Pete shows up, and yeah, the actor who plays Pete does such a good job of, like, I think it's one of those where, like, some people might say, oh, he's okay as long as he doesn't get drunk. Yeah, but does he get drunk, though, knowing what he becomes? Because, like, that's not that much of a, that's not the flex you think it is. But he, yeah, you can tell where, like, usually from the start of when he enters a scene, if he is or is not drunk. And yeah, he's like, who do you think you are? You are in my home. And the fact that she managed to stand up to him, Jesus Christ, saying, you get out, and the way that, the abuse, and this is again borne out by the research, yeah, he doesn't immediately go to hitting her. He starts, like, well, let's see, he, like, threw something or hit the wall or something, and he uses the phrase, what have you two been talking about? And I don't need to say this to, like, there's a lot of women out there that don't need to hear this. So this one's really more for, like, men. If you find out that a man reacts like that, like they were having a conversation, like, okay, it would be one thing if Pete walked in the room and Rick and Jesse were in some kind of sexual situation or intimate or something, or maybe they could make a movie about the sightline of that guy who walks in on his wife cheating. God, I love corrections. or let's say that Rick was abusing Jesse in some way. But no, he walks in and like he doesn't like the vibe. He did a vibe check and this that ain't it, chief. And basically he doesn't like the ideas that his wife now has. And that is a massive red flag. So if you know someone who reacts like that, see if the people close to them are okay, if they're safe, if they need help, um, yeah, handling that situation. But yeah, they're doing such a great job. Like he is reciting the manual, which I think he may have written himself for domestic abusers, and because he blames Rick for putting ideas in Jesse's head, when really like what happened here is he gave her the confidence to, and if she had had support from Alexandria, might not even have needed Rick to deal with it. But yeah. And so Pete starts getting physically violent with Rick. And they do a good job because like it is this thing of like technically Pete is a little bigger, so yeah, really, really good job on that. Because like it would obviously be pretty boring. Like, obviously there's no way that Pete is just gonna go with. That's not how these types of things. Again, that's extremely rare. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. A lot of the time, there's going to be violence. The domestic abuser might try to assault, for example, law enforcement, and they could easily have done it the boring way, where Rick, because Rick is quite formidable, but this guy's bigger, and his adrenaline has, like his adrenaline starts pumping as soon as he opens the door and sees the two of them, and like realizes, oh hey, there's something going on here, so he is in a more agitated state. Whereas Rick, Rick gets there. It doesn't take terribly long for Rick to get, let's see, get the upper hand. But before that, Pete does, hurt him. Yeah. And let's see, at first they're fighting inside. We just some of it we just hear the noises. Great sound design as usual. And then they go flying out through the glass door, and these two bloodied, bruised guys, fighting in plain view, well, in Alexandria, not plain view, of so many of these neighbors, and I love the bit where the child's balloon just goes flying off. The innocence of Alexandria is gone. And, will it ever come back? Will that kid ever say, I got a new balloon, mister? And I love the fact that they fight so fucking dirty. Like, there's hands around throats. I think it was Rick who was about to try to, like, gouge out Pete's eyes. Like, Jesus. Try sewing that back, motherfucker. But yeah, we get several shots just dedicated to showing the various neighbors seeing this, and several people run up. Some of them like try to grab, Jesse grabs Pete, and Pete hits her. That's sadly, a situation they've been in before. But yeah, like various people try to stop it, verbally, physically, and ultimately, Rick gets out the gun that Carol got for him that he's not supposed to have because they're inside Alexandria, and he starts aiming it at people, and he just looks like, he like completely out of control. Blood all over his face, the look in his eyes, just, yeah. And I appreciate, like, yeah, even, Carl and I'm sorry, I'm struggling to remember all these names, and my wrists are too fucked to check right now, but uh yeah, the girl, um is Enid her name, maybe? I feel like that seems familiar to me. um and Glenn is there, and Michonne is there, and yeah, he says that he's taking over and things are going to change because the and it is like we're seeing it bubble up to the surface, both for Rick and Alexandria, this idea that this is not reality. They're living in a fantasy world. The world they know is just a sugar-coated topping. There's another world beneath it, the real world. And I really appreciate that they like that line so much that not only is in the first movie, it's also in the pilot of the Blade TV show, which isn't half bad. I've watched that multiple times without anyone like forcing me to or anything. It's, yeah. Anyway, the yes, the yeah, Rick can't stand to see, not after everything he's been through. And on some level, the people of Alexandria know this is not sustainable. This is not. Yeah. Um, and then Michonne knocks him out. So that's, yeah. I am. I do not know what is going to happen, but I'm very excited. And the next episode, because like there was an entire fucking conversation, because I think that was set up. It hasn't been paid off yet. We wouldn't execute Pete, we might exile him. I wouldn't even have you executed, I would only have you exiled, which, like, yeah, she's basically saying, if you harm Pete, you will be exiled. And that was what was about to happen before he drew his gun. And I don't think him drawing his gun and aiming it at them exactly helped matters, because it's one of those things. He could have just, like, drawn the gun and held it in the, like done see, I have a gun, safety's off, so nobody make a move. But no, he's specifically aiming at people, you know like, that's, yeah, he's really not okay here in Alexandria, and we saw that. One night he can't sleep. He gets up. He gets a kitchen knife out of the drawer. Like, he's not. And that's what's so fucking tragic. He can't do this anymore. At least not the way that Alexandria is right now. Maybe if, like, some things changed, but I don't know if he's gonna have much of a say in that. And I do also think it is interesting that she knocks him out, and I don't know that it's necessarily that she wants him exiled, but she definitely knows that, this is wrong, what he's doing. um yeah. And I feel like Carol is staying there going, God damn it, Rick, timing. And the yeah, it's so fucking tragic, because this is what he wanted. He even said, we drive past houses like this, talking about his wife. And they wanted a place like this, but now it feels wrong to him because of everything he's seen, because of what's past those walls, because of the way that things are being run, and just, yeah. Um, I can hardly wait to see what happens next. And I appreciate the way that this genuinely does feel like where they were going without. I certainly didn't realize that it would end up like this. You know, I think I've basically figured, oh, they're gonna, make sure the timing is just right, and yeah, be very careful about it. But he basically snaps, and I do also appreciate, he was there to, at the bare minimum, get Pete away from Jesse, and then Pete attacks him, and there's this prolonged fight, that gets his adrenaline pumping, and he would have killed um, Pete right there in front of everyone. And the yeah, I really appreciate that they acknowledge that when, because that's just the thing about the human brain. Um, when a human being is that excited, and obviously I don't mean sexually, but the heightened level of emotion, it is difficult for them to turn that back off just like that, and yeah, he doesn't turn it off, he just turns it on others. And I don't know that he would have actually killed anyone, certainly not in any other circumstance than like if one of them tried to rush him or something. And then they could do a blood test and find out if that person really was still human or not, and maybe, or whether or not he was a murderer. But the yeah, his head was homicidal, and he can't just turn it off on just like that. Yeah. um I think that pretty much covers. Let's see, I feel like there was one more thing that I really wanted to make sure to say. Right, I also thought it was noteworthy that, like, yeah, the the specific person that was able to get Rick to stop trying, and what that character did to stop him, leading directly into him drawing his gun and pointing it at people. Uh, let's see, what was the other thing? I think, was it the, I don't know, maybe, right, like the, Carl and Enid talking, the thing about, what happened to you. And, I went through a lot as well. Yeah, I think I've said everything that I had for this episode. So yeah, um, I can hardly wait to see what what happens next. And let's see the yeah, I think that might be all that. Yeah. Also been talking for a while. Hope it's entertaining to watch as it is to record. Yeah. I think that might cover. Yeah. I did notice. I'm going to try not to think about what it means, but I did notice. I'm sure later I'll understand. Someone carved a W into the head of the woman hanging there, being fed on. I don't know. I think she would probably think of her situation as taking an L.